Hello viewers, and welcome back to the channel. Now, there have been a few new bikes launched in the last 10 days or so that I want to share with you and discuss down below in the comment section. So we have a brand new BMC race bike, a new Merida gravel bike that won the World Gravel Champs a few weeks ago, a good way to launch a new bike for sure. We have a new Focus Izalco Max, but we'll start with a brand new Polygon gravel bike. Now, Polygon isn't a brand, I have to be honest, I'm not aware of. I've heard of them, and I do see lots of people requesting reviews of their bikes down below in the comment section, but I'm not actually sure if they are available here in the UK. Let me know if I'm wrong. But anyway, the company has launched their first carbon gravel bike, and it looks really good, and the price is pretty amazing. We're talking $3,000 for a carbon frame and fork with a SRAM Access Explore wireless group set and some decent wheels and finishing kit as well. So a real value proposition from this new bike, and the bike in question looks really good too. Quite a funky looking frame, big chunky head tube and down tube, then a skinny top tube and compact rear triangle, and mounts all over the frame. There are 14 mounts on the down tube, the top tube and the rear stage. So you can fit mud guards, put a rack on there, loads of bags and bottles, so a real adventure bike packing option, commuting, touring. It's a bike that ticks many boxes. A possible downside is that the bike has cable routing through the headset, but there is a normal stem and handlebar at least. But that shows even for a brand that are focusing on value for money and that sort of more affordable end of the market, that internal cable routing is popular and something the brand feels they have to offer to appeal to people buying this bike. So pros and cons, of course, to the system, but it does look clean, of course, but maintenance is a potential issue. Although how often do you have to maintain bearings in the headset? Let me know by leaving a comment down below. So a really interesting new bike, great price point, some interesting details, the geometry looks good, and hopefully I'll try and get one in for review and see how it stacks up compared to competition in the growing gravel sector. From the Polygon to the brand new Merida Silex, which launched a few weeks ago following a successful debut in the Gravel World Champs, being ridden to victory in the men's pro race. Had Silex on the down tube and everything, so built up quite a bit of buzz in the media just a few days before it was officially unveiled. So this is a second generation of the Taiwanese company gravel bike, first launched back in 2018. And back then, when it launched, it was very distinctive because it was one of the growing number of mountain bike inspired gravel bikes. So we're talking a geometry that has a longer reach and a shorter stem, wider handlebar, and a much slacker head angle than you often get on the sort of road biased gravel bikes like the Canyon Grail, the Video Rave, SLR, and so on. So much slacker, much more capable for riding off-road, very technical, demanding trails, and definitely aimed at adventure and bike packing riders, and not pitched as a race bike, although it did just fine as a race bike a few weeks ago. The new Silex is even more progressive in the geometry, so even longer, slacker and lower than that original bike, so definitely pushing more into adventure bike packing space and away from gravel race. And they actually have a version of their Sculptura endurance bike for that sort of fast, smooth gravel race sector, where the Canyon Grail, the Specialized Crux do really well in that space. But this is really going after the customer who wants to ride trails where mountain bike might be a better choice. So I'm talking the Villiers Adler, which launched a few weeks ago. There's the BMC Rs, of course, another good example. The Evil, Chamois, Hagar, and a few other examples. The 51 Assassin as well, so really capable gravel bikes riding extremely rough and demanding trails. So a load of changes to the geometry, and tire clearance has gone up to 45mm, which is an improvement over the old bike, but I think it could have gone to 50 or even 55, just give a bit more future proofing and give more scope for fitting wide tires, because wide tires on gravel bikes are becoming very popular. I now run a 45 on my Crux, and I know lots of people riding 50 and want that mud clearance around the tyre and between the frame as well, or space to fit mud guards around a big chunky tyre. So I think they could have gone to a bigger tyre just to give it a longer shelf life compared to what other rivals are doing. And to meet the demands of the adventure bike packing customer, the bike is packing loads of mounts for extra bags and bottles and racks and mud guards. The aluminium version has rack mounts, so you can fit a pannier setup for commuting and touring. You can fit a dropper seat post or a suspension seat post or even a suspension fork as well. So really versatile, highly configurable gravel bike for whatever sort of riding you are doing. And being Merida, you can expect great value for money as well, with carbon and aluminium offerings. And I'll put a link to their website down below so you can check out their prices. But if you're watching in the US, I know lots of you are, then Merida aren't available in the US due to their deal with Specialized. Right, that's enough off-road bikes. Let's turn our attention to some road bikes, and we'll start with the new Focus Izalco Max, the German company's flagship race bike. Now, you might think that modern bikes are heavy compared to old bikes thanks to disc brakes, electronic gears and aerodynamics, but it wasn't always this way. Back in 2015, I went to a launch of the Izalco Max in Italy, had a very nice ride around Lake Como. Highly recommend that area for riding in the summer. And that bike was presented as a modern disc brake bike with hydraulic disc brakes and through axles with a SRAM red group set, and it weighed 6.8 kilos. 6.8 kilos back in 2015 for a road disc brake bike, which is just astonishing and even stands out well today. But that version was clearly focused on lightweight and proven that disc brakes don't have to be a handicap on the scales. But with the version launched a few years ago and this new version launched this week, they are clearly trying to make it more aero and not really chasing the weight and going after that all-round appeal that the Tarmac SL8 has. Light enough to climb well and aero enough to be fast on the flats and sprints. So this new bike, thanks to all the aero improvements, is claimed to save you 6.6 watts at 45 kilometers per hour over the old version, which is quite a decent improvement. And if you're a pro, that's fantastic news. And if you're not a pro, probably not so important. But you know, if you're battling to a headwind, you're going quite fast, then you know, the aero savings will make a difference, even if you don't think they do. But sadly, what this new bike isn't is anywhere near as light as it used to be back in 2015. A top-of-the-range version with Dura-Race Di2 weighed 7.2 kilos, which is pretty decent for a bike, and it's sort of par for the course these days. But you can get a Tarmac SL8 with the same group set for 6.6, 6.8 kilos. And even that Giant Defy endurance bike I reviewed a few weeks ago is 7 kilos on the nose. So it's light, but probably not light enough. So a real shame that in 2015, they had a 6.8 kilo bike. And while the new bike clearly faster, thanks to aero improvements, it's quite a bit heavier. So progress in one way, but a backward step in another aspect. It is a good looking bike though, it looks fast, looks very distinctive compared to other bikes in the market. As befits any modern road bike these days, we have full integration of the brake hoses and wires around the handlebar and stem. But thankfully for fit adjustment, we have a two-piece assembly. So you can swap the handlebar, the stem to suit your needs, rather than the one-piece design, which does limit your options when it comes to getting the right size, the right stem length, and the right handlebar width to suit your requirements. And Focus is a brand that also offers, as well as clearly good design and engineering, good prices and value for money as well. So the range starts from just under £3,000 with a Shimano 105 group set, and tops out at just over £8,500 for a Shimano Dura-Race Di2 group set, which isn't crazy money compared to the £10,000 or £12,000 you can spend on a Dura-Race equipped bike these days. Oddly, there's no SRAM red access or Campag super record option in the range. It tops out at Dura-Race for some reason. And it's also quite pleasing to see that the price of that top end bike, which is a lot of money, is actually cheaper than the old version. So maybe this era of prices going up and up and up is coming to an end, and prices might slowly come back down. There is hope, I've got my fingers crossed, that prices might come back down to a more reasonable level in the future, but we can only hope. So the new Teammachine R, I guess R stands for racing or rapid or something else, doesn't replace the Teammachine SLR. That remains in the range as a smoother riding and lighter weight climbing bike, and doesn't replace the Teammachine Aero bike. It's a bike that sits in between. It's light and it's aero, but they aren't calling it an aero bike, although it clearly is an aero bike, and trying to do the same thing as a Tarmac which is, I know, our reference point, our benchmark for that all-rounder, a lightweight aero race bike. And it's a result of working with the Red Bull Advanced Technology division. Like McLaren, they have a division which you can hire to consult on a product you are designing. So Red Bull have given BMC loads of input in terms of aerodynamics and carbon fiber kind of layout and construction to develop the brand new bike. So it's more aero than the Teammachine SLR, but not quite as light and not quite as compliant, actually quite a bit stiffer and harder riding than that bike. So an interesting mix of numbers that they present in the press release for this bike compared to the Teammachine and what it offers on paper. So the new bike is claimed to be 19% faster than the Teammachine without a rider on it, but just 3.5% faster with a rider on the bike, and show quite a big difference between having a rider on the bike versus not having a rider on the bike. The most distinctive feature on the bike is the new fork, which they call a halo fork, in reference to a halo on an F1 car. So what they've done is moved the fork blade away from the wheel as much as the UCI regs allow, to basically allow more airflow between the wheel and the fork, kind of like we saw on that Lotus track bike a few years ago, the Lotus Hope track bike, which has a really mad fork and rear stay to move them away from the frame and the wheel. So similar idea there. You can either push the fork blade close to the wheel or further away, and they go further away, and does create quite a jarring kind of crown area on the bike, which I'm not sure if I like the look of, to be honest. And you think it gives big tire clearance, but it only takes up to 30mm wide tyre, so not that generous compared to other race bikes on the market. And then we have this massive bottom bracket area, a press-fit bottom bracket inside a huge swooping carbon fibre section, which they call the Mariana Trench, which is a bit silly. And that is aimed to improve the airflow around the area into the back of the frame. And then the seat tube, as you can see, really hugs the rear wheel to try and smooth airflow around the rim of that rear wheel. Then we have the same handlebar and stem you get on their Cayuse gravel bike. So a crazy narrow 36cm width in the hood, flowing out to a wider drop and full internal cable routing as well. So an interesting looking bike, got some cool features. I can't wait to see how it rides, if it's as fast as they say it is. The Teammachine SLR is one of my favorite bikes of all time, a bike that blends comfort and weight and stiffness. So if a new bike is that version but on steroids, it should ride really well. But if you like the look of it and you fancy one where you need some really deep pockets to afford it, because prices start at $9,000. They start at $9,000, which is just mental, and go all the way up to $15,000, which is just crazy money. So yeah, one of the most expensive new bikes launched this year, I think, for sure. So some serious money. I guess they have to pay for F1 technology somehow. So some of the new bikes launched this week, and if you want to see and if you enjoy the content and want more behind the scenes content from myself here at Just Ride Bikes, then make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. It goes out weekly, but use the link down below. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and delivers it straight to your inbox. So I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again very soon.